folks, welcome back to Thunder Mesa Studio. Today's how-to video is all about painting rockwork, adding ground cover, and detailing scenery. Once again, we'll be focusing on the recently completed Zocalo Plaza area on the Thunder Mesa layout, an area that is now home to the beautiful structures, figures, and details of Vern Niner's award-winning San Lorenzo diorama. Before his passing, Vern entrusted me with the care of these wonderful models, and I can only hope that this new scene does them justice. Okay, just about ready to start the final painting process on the rockwork behind the Mission area and Zocalo Plaza. I've done all the patching and filling with blending with Sculptamold that I'm going to do. Got a nice, more or less even coat of the scenic base color, burnt sienna, or raw sienna, sorry, on everything. And the next step is just to give everything a dark wash that will seep back into all the cracks and crevices and darken those up and make them pop once the final paint is done. And to do that, I'm just using some diluted black paint. This is acrylic black paint diluted with water. Please don't ask me the ratio. I have no idea. It's just diluted enough to run back into the cracks and crevices. And I put it in this cheap little spray bottle. And as you can see, I've covered the track with some blue painter's tape to keep that from getting stained also. And I'm just going to start spraying it on here, letting it soak back into those cracks and crevices. I want to protect this speaker here. As you can see, it's diluted just enough to run down and fill in every place I need it to fill in. Okay, all that is now dry, and I'm ready to move forward with my favorite part of this whole process, which is the final scenic painting, the final texturing and coloring to make this look more like, well, more like actual rock and less like a big brown pile. And to do that, I use just these inexpensive artists' acrylics. These are student grade, what's called student grade acrylics, which you can pick up at Walmart or on Amazon, or any good art supply store carries them. And these are the colors I use. Little burnt sienna, some raw sienna. This is called unbleached titanium, which is just a really light tan. Burnt umber, and a little red oxide. And that's it. Those are the only colors I use. Generally, I just use a big 1-inch filbert brush. Filbert means it's kind of rounded on the end like that, like a nut, see? And this allows me to get into all those little areas, little nooks and crannies that I want to get into. Okay, I'm going to start right on this middle section here so you can see what I'm doing. And notice I don't dilute the paint at all. I'm using it right out of the tube. This isn't really a dry brushing, but it's kind of the same idea, because what I want to do is just hit the tops surfaces here like this, leaving the shadows to show through. So it's very much like dry brushing, which you may be familiar with. And always keep in mind that acrylic paints are going to dry a shade darker than they go on. I always start it with kind of a medium tone so that I can darken it up and lighten it up as I go along here. Now say I want to add a little more color, just a little bit of this burnt sienna. Put that in there. So we want some streaks coming down here, like that. Just going to let that blend. The key is to keep it subtle, you know. Don't go overboard. See that? If we want to accentuate a shadow area, you know, or simulate what's called desert varnish, which is a place where water runs down the rock, you get some of that burnt umber. Put that in there. jab it back into the cracks. And I'm just letting all this blend together wet right on the surface of the scenery. That's looking pretty okay. Now for the final step in the process, you go in and put in the last of the highlights, just like if you were doing a 2D painting. And it's easy to get carried away with this. Once again, you want to keep it subtle, not overdo it. And this really is kind of a dry brush. A little bit of light on the rocks there. This is also the time I start thinking about these layers of strata here. Maybe this one's a little bit lighter, carrying it on over from this section of the layout, carrying that over so it matches. All the same geology going on, you know. I think it's about time I just stopped and left that alone for a while. Okay. Good enough. Wait. There. Now for the ground cover here in front of Mission San Lorenzo and in Zocalo Plaza, I'm going to be using mostly Polyblend Sanded Grout. This is the sandstone color right there, though I am going to be adding a little bit of my own color to it. This is the same stuff that Vern Niner used in the original San Lorenzo diorama, so I wanted to kind of match that look, and plus I've really grown accustomed to using it. I really like the way it goes on. Just add a little bit of water and mix it up with a brush. Now if you're going to use a paintbrush for this, you want to use one that you're not fond of because you'll never use it for anything else again. You just keep adding water a little bit at a time until all of the sanded grout is wet in there. And I mix it up small batches at a time in little plastic trays like this. That way I can control it a little better. Just kind of scoop a little bit out with your brush and just stipple it right onto the layout like this. Being real careful not to go over the top of little details like the fountain here that is now glued down. You don't want to put it on too thick either, you know. Not more than a 1/16 of an inch, if even that. Just a nice texture layer right on top. Before this dries completely, I want to go in and put in details like horse hoofs and wagon tracks and things like that. I'm just going to use a little palette knife, pull that along. This is a high traffic area here on the plaza, so there's lots of wagon tracks crisscrossing. Take my O-scale horse and just do this. Some horse hoofs in. Now that the sanded grout has had a chance to dry overnight,
I'm going to go in and sprinkle on some real dirt and sand and rocks that I collect out in the desert around here. Some of it's from Sedona, some of it's from Moab, Utah. And they have different shades and consistencies. This is kind of a light sand right here. And I just use these little Dixie cups. Just kind of sprinkle it on where I want it. Alright. Once I get the dirt and sand where I want it, I go back and wet it down with a little wet water. And if you're not familiar with wet water, it's just like regular water, except it's got a couple of drops of liquid detergent in it, which breaks the surface tension and keeps it from moving around the dirt that you just put in place. Wet that down. And now I've got a mixture of diluted matte medium. Matte medium is a lot like white glue. Spray that on and let that soak in. Now while the glue's still wet, I'm going to go in and start adding some of the rocks and cactus and bushes and things like that.
Flowers and plants used here are from Scenic Express, Woodland Scenics, and other sources. Some of the cacti are from Pegasus models, and the rest are built from scratch out of Sculpey or urethane foam. More on how I make those in the future How To. The figures used in this scene are mostly white metal castings from Knuckle Duster Miniatures. They were hand painted by either Vern Niner or myself. Hey, stay tuned for the next Thunder Mesa Studio how-to video, where I'll demonstrate my favorite techniques for painting and ballasting track. Until then, thanks for tuning in, amigos. Don't forget to subscribe, and adios for now.